He was a poor sailor. Her family refused him. So he made a decision. He would come back rich. 2 years, 53 ships taken. He was the most successful pirate in the Atlantic. Everything he risked his life for was in the hold. She was waiting. He could see the coastline. April 26, 1717, hours from home. Then the storm came. Cape Cod, Massachusetts, 1715. Samuel Bellamy arrived here as a young English sailor. He was 26 years old. He had nothing. He met Whydah Gally that year. She was 15 or 16. Her family were prosperous Cape Cod farmers. The gap between what Bellamy was and what her family required was not small. Her family refused him. The specific words are not recorded. The outcome is, Bellamy left Cape Cod without her. The decision he made when he left is the reason this story exists at all. He would come back rich enough that nobody could refuse him. That is the documented version of his stated intention. He would return to claim her. He sailed to Florida first, attempting to salvage Spanish treasure from the 1715 fleet disaster. When that failed, he turned to piracy with Benjamin Hornigold. What happened to Whydah while Bellamy was away is recorded in legend more than documents. She gave birth to his child. The child died. The community dealt with her harshly. Whether Whydah Gally is a documented figure or a legend built around a real woman is genuinely uncertain. What is certain is that Bellamy intended to return to her. Bellamy's stated purpose, as recorded in testimony from captains he captured, was to make enough money to return to Cape Cod. He was not hiding this, he told people. He had 2 years. What he did in those 2 years is documented in court records, colonial dispatches, and testimony from men he captured. The record is specific. Multiple accounts describe him releasing prisoners unharmed and sometimes giving them supplies. He was building a reputation as well as a fortune. Both mattered for what he planned. 2 years at sea meant this: the North Atlantic in winter, the Caribbean in hurricane season, the constant possibility of a Royal Navy patrol on the horizon. Salt beef that rotted in the barrel, water that tasted of the cask, scurvy that loosened teeth and opened old wounds, the daily reality of what turning pirate actually meant. Bellamy ran his ship differently. His crew voted on targets. Equal shares were documented in articles all crew members signed. Prisoners were interviewed before release. His speech to a captured captain was recorded verbatim. Bellamy told him he was a free prince with no laws but those of natural justice. The speech was noted because it was unusual. Storms took ships without warning. Disease moved through crews in weeks. Every man with Bellamy knew what failure looked like. Execution dock had been running for centuries. The Royal Navy was active in the Caribbean and Atlantic throughout 1716 and 1717. The Empire was watching. The window for Bellamy's plan was not infinite. By late 1716, Bellamy had been at sea over a year. He had taken prizes. He had money. He had a reputation. He had not yet taken the prize that would make the return possible. He needed one significant capture, something that would put enough in the hold that the return could not be questioned by anyone, including Whydagh's family. He was looking for the right ship. The Whydah Gally, built in London 1715, named after the West African slave port of Whydah, 102 feet long, 300 tons. She was carrying rum, spices, ivory, and precious metals. Bellamy spotted her near the Bahamas in February 1717. He gave chase for 3 days. The Whydah's captain surrendered when escape became impossible. Bellamy took her as his flagship. He transferred his crew to the Whydah, armed her with additional cannons, eventually over 40 guns. He had the most heavily armed pirate vessel in the Atlantic. He turned north, February 1717, destination Cape Cod. The plan he had made when he left Whydah Gally 2 years earlier was in its final phase. The Whydah was unlike anything else operating in the Atlantic. Most pirate vessels were sloops, lightly armed. The Whydah was a full-rigged galley, fast and heavily armed. The treasure represented 2 years of accumulated prizes: gold, silver, pieces of 8, spices, ivory. Contemporary estimates suggest the equivalent of tens of millions in modern terms. He was 28 years old. He had left Cape Cod with nothing. He was returning with the most valuable cargo on the most powerful vessel of the Golden Age. He continued taking prizes on the way north. Even on the return journey, with the hold already full, he stopped to take merchant vessels. It was what the crew expected. By April 1717, his fleet was off Virginia heading northeast. He was weeks from Cape Cod. He had the treasure, the ship, and 146 men who had sailed 2 years with him. He knew this coastline, the cold gray Atlantic spring of New England, the smell of the ocean off Cape Cod. He had been away 2 years and the coast was getting closer. April 26, 1717. Bellamy was off the coast of Cape Cod. He took 2 more prizes that morning. The hold was full. The coast was visible. He was hours away. Whether Maria Hallett was watching the horizon that morning is not documented. The legend says she was on the dunes. The documented facts place Bellamy off Wellfleet on April 26. From the deck of the Whydah, looking west toward Cape Cod in the early morning of April 26, 1717, the destination was visible. 2 years and the coastline was right there. That afternoon the weather changed. A dense fog closed in, the kind Cape Cod produces that turns the familiar coastline into a wall of gray. He could not have known what was behind it. Behind the fog was one of the worst storms in the recorded history of the Cape. Witnesses described gusts of 70 miles an hour and seas of 30 feet. Bellamy attempted to navigate through. He knew the Cape Cod shoals. In daylight and clear weather he could have managed it. In 70-mile winds and total darkness he could not. The nor'easter hit Wellfleet at approximately 11 o'clock on the night of April 26. The Whydah was in open water. The wind was pushing the ship directly toward the Cape Cod shore. The outer cape is a graveyard of ships. The shoals extend miles offshore. The sandbars shift with every storm. A vessel on a lee shore in a nor'easter has one outcome. The surviving accounts describe the last minutes with the specificity that comes from 2 men who lived through it. The ship was running under bare poles. Bellamy was at the helm. At approximately 11:30, the Whydah struck the Wellfleet bar. A vessel of 300 tons hitting a sandbar at speed in 30-foot seas does not bounce. The hull broke. The sea came in. She went down in minutes. The same hold that had carried 2 years of treasure, the same decks where 146 men had lived, were underwater before anyone on shore could reach them. By dawn, the storm had passed. The Cape Cod shore was covered in wreckage and bodies. 102 bodies. 144 men had gone into the water. 2 came out alive. Thomas Davis, Welsh, a carpenter who testified he had been forced aboard. He survived clinging to wreckage, found on the beach at dawn, alive, in a world where 144 men were not. John Julian, a Cape Cod Native American, pilot of the Whydah, responsible for coastal navigation. He knew the Cape Cod shoals. He survived, the only man of color in the crew. The local community arrived at first light. The Cape Cod shore was covered in treasure, coins, pieces of 8, silver and gold scattered across miles of beach by the storm. The legend says Maria walked the beach at dawn through the wreckage and the bodies. The storm happened within sight of the dunes, where she had waited 2 years. 102 bodies on the beach, the men who had sailed with Bellamy for 2 years. Their names are not recorded, their faces are not in any archive. Bellamy's body was not among the 102 recovered, not found on the beach, not identified, not buried. He went down with the ship he had taken 2 months earlier to come home on. The sandbar off Wellfleet, where the Whydah struck, is now called Bellamy's Bar. The beach where the bodies washed up is a national seashore. His location is not documented. Thomas Davis and John Julian were taken into custody by colonial Massachusetts authorities that same morning, while the bodies were still on the beach. The institutional response was swift. Davis was eventually acquitted. His testimony of forced service was corroborated. He went free. John Julian's fate was different. John Julian was sold into slavery. He had survived the worst storm in Cape Cod history. The colonial legal system's response to his survival was to sell him as property. Governor Shute of Massachusetts dispatched Captain Cyprian Southack to Cape Cod within days of the wreck. Southack was a noted cartographer and naval officer. His mission was specific: salvage what he could for the crown. Southack arrived to find the ship capsized and broken apart. The wreckage was spread over a wide area. Local residents had already been through the site. Much of what could be taken was gone. Southack attempted to dig through the sand to reach the wreck. The Cape Cod sand defeated him. He recovered very little of value. His journals record what he found and what he did not. His journals record the geography of the wreck site with cartographic precision. They record his attempts to reach the hull. They do not record any concern for the 102 men on the beach. The treasure Southack could not recover was collected by the Cape Cod community over the following weeks. Coins appeared in local transactions for years. The sea gave back what it chose. The men from Bellamy's other captured vessels were tried at Boston in October 1717. 8 were hanged. The trial was conducted with the full apparatus of colonial law. Cotton Mather preached at the executions. He described the pirates as servants of the devil. He did not describe what Bellamy had said about natural justice and free princes. The institutional response: Southack sent for the gold, Julian sold into slavery, 8 men hanged at Boston, Davis released, 102 bodies in the sand, the crown recovered nothing. The Whydah became legend almost immediately. The treasure on the seabed off Wellfleet, the pirate who turned to crime for love and almost made it home. Coins appeared on the beach for generations. Maria Hallett, if she existed as the legend describes, outlived Bellamy by decades. Cape Cod oral tradition says she died an old woman, still watching the horizon. For 267 years, the Whydah lay in the sand off Wellfleet. The Cape Cod sand is not still. Storms move it. The wreck shifted and settled. Nobody could find the ship. Bellamy's story became part of Cape Cod's identity. The pirate who came home, the storm that stopped him, the treasure still on the bottom. Every generation knew the story. Then in 1984, a man named Barry Clifford decided to look seriously. He had grown up on Cape Cod hearing the story. He had access to Southack's 1717 charts. He used them. In 1984, Clifford's team located artifacts off Wellfleet. In 1985, they recovered a bronze ship's bell, inscribed the Whydah Gally 1716. The legend was history. The ship was exactly where Southack had mapped it. The excavation began immediately and has never stopped. The Whydah is the only fully authenticated pirate shipwreck ever discovered in any ocean. Every object recovered is documented, conserved, and studied. Over 200,000 artifacts so far. What the wreck contains is specific: gold coins, silver pieces of 8, personal objects, buttons, buckles, a shoe, a silk stocking, the physical residue of 146 men alive on April 26, 1717. The Whydah Gally 1716, cast into bronze at construction, in the sand for 267 years. It came up intact. It is the definitive proof that this is the ship Bellamy took in February 1717. The cannons, recovered from the seabed after 267 years in salt water, they match the documented armament of the Whydah, the guns Bellamy armed her with for the return to Cape Cod. A pistol still loaded with unspent shot, a bag of gold coins with a pistol inside, 1 man's savings still together, a leather shoe, a silk stocking, evidence of specific men. In 2021, archaeologists recovered 6 sets of human bones from the wreck site, encased in concretions. The bones of 6 of the 144 men who went down with the Whydah in 1717. 3 years before the 2021 discovery, researchers obtained DNA from a descendant of Bellamy living in Devon. The DNA exists. The bones exist. The comparison is ongoing. Whether any of the 6 sets of bones is Bellamy's has not been confirmed. The analysis takes time. DNA degrades over 300 years in salt water. The team has not yet published a finding. The artifacts are in the Whydah Pirate Museum in Yarmouth, Massachusetts, on Cape Cod, the same Cape Cod where Bellamy met Maria in 1715. The objects came home even if the man did not. The beach at Wellfleet is a national seashore, the same sand, the same cold gray Atlantic. Visitors walk the beach in summer without knowing what happened here in April 1717. Bellamy's Bar, the sandbar off Wellfleet where the Whydah struck at 11:30 on April 26, 1717. It still bears his name. He was hours away when he hit it. The excavation continues. New objects emerge from the sand every season. The wreck covers a wide area. The Whydah broke apart on impact. There is more still to find. The Whydah was built for the slave trade, named after the West African port of Whydah. Bellamy took her from that trade. John Julian sailed on her. The wreck holds all of this simultaneously. The wreck is the most documented physical record of the Golden Age of Piracy in existence. Every object connects to a specific man making a specific decision in a specific year. He could see this coastline on the morning of April 26. He had left it 2 years earlier as a poor sailor with a plan. He was returning with the plan complete. Whether she was watching that morning or not, the distance between them was hours. 2 years of the Atlantic's worst conditions, and he was hours from home. The Whydah is on the seabed off Wellfleet between 5 and 9 meters deep. She has been there 307 years. The cold Atlantic that took her gave her back in pieces from 1984. The bell came up first, the Whydah Gally 1716, in the sand for 267 years. It came up intact, the proof that the story was real and the man was real. The bones are being studied. The DNA from Bellamy's Devon descendants exists. Whether Bellamy is among the recovered remains has not been confirmed. He may still be in the sand. The woman died on Cape Cod. The man died within sight of the Cape Cod shore. The ship lies on the seabed off the Cape Cod beach. The story began here and is still here. He left Cape Cod because her family said he was not good enough. He spent 2 years proving them wrong. He got close enough to see the shore. The storm came that night. He never made it ashore. He is still trying. The bell says so. The bones say so. The coins still coming up from the sand say so. He came back. He just never got there.